All right. Good evening, everyone. Let's get right into it. Kind of surprising, futures down a little bit, but I would have expected a little bit more, to be honest with you. I'm sure many of you guys saw the news on the Ukraine attack on Russia. Took out like 47 bombers or something. And I know that doesn't necessarily, quote unquote, affect the U.S. markets, but when you think of the S&P futures, stock market futures, I mean, you see stuff like that happening off. That's a major escalation of a global conflict. I guess I would perceive it this way. Futures down 0.2% right now. I kind of consider that bullish, to be honest with you. Like this is one of those scenarios that we go through, on the Sunday night. And, if you would have asked me, hours ago, hey, where do you think futures are going to go after they open up based on this news out of Ukraine? And I would have been like, ooh, geez, man, probably 2 to 3% down, probably a pretty ugly pullback. And as you see, again, fading a little bit now, down 0.28%, almost down 0.3%. But actually, I kind of consider that as bullish, really, when it comes to the read and the interpretation of that news. Because all we can do, remember, one of my favorite trading quotes, and it's for short-term trading. When we're talking short-term trading, we don't anticipate, we react. Okay. I know I give these quotes out almost every week, but the Mike Tyson quote, everyone has a plan until you get punched in the face. One of my favorite, military type quotes, no battle plan survives contact with the enemy. So we don't play guessing games. You don't play guessing games. You just react to the information in front of you. And right now, the future's looking pretty bullish. So let's jump over to kind of the recap of the week. SBET, we'll come back to SBET. We'll go back over to that because if you guys remember, last Sunday night, if you were here, and hopefully you're here every week, but if you were here, I ended with, what did I say? RCTs on Tuesday morning. Remember, market was closed for Memorial Day. But I was like, RCTs, and I pointed out SBET and Works. The two speculative plays we went over at the end of Sunday night was SBET and Works, and I'll come back to it. But SBET did an RCT in pre-market between 7 and 9 a.m. Again, if you were here, like people were asking me, hey, Tim, what's the number one play for when the markets reopen? I said RCTs from 7 to 9 a.m. SBET did that. We'll come back to that one. IMNN, big runner all week. SGN, Buru, had a bunch of big poppers. Large cap movers, really recapping May. Pretty impressive. Now, again, and I try and avoid doing the I told you so stuff, but sometimes it just happens. If you recall all of April, when all of these technology companies were selling off, and listen, back in April, I was on Cheddar and said, buy tech stocks. Like I was on these YouTube lives. I'm like, guys, we've been waiting for an opportunity to buy these tech stocks, the Magnificent Seven. They just went up every day, every week, every year. And while most were panicking and freaking out in April, I was like, buy. And again, all of them are recorded. I know I mentioned this. You can go back and watch the Sunday Night Lives. I'm like, guys, this pullback in the Mag 7 is a gift, okay? April was a gift. And you look back to recap April, NVIDIA was up 24% on the month. Tesla up 23% on the month. Coinbase 22%. Dell 21%. Meta 18%, Microsoft 16%, AMD 14%, Shopify 13%, Amazon 11%, Adobe 10%, Alphabet, aka Google 8%, and Netflix 7%. That was after, April 17th is when I was on Cheddar. and I said, buy all the tech stocks. So anyway, going into next week, let me run over the calendar. Tomorrow we have, this might be kind of the biggest calendar event of the week. Jay Powell has announced I wouldn't say emergency press conference, but unscheduled. Okay. Tomorrow, 1 p.m. Eastern, Jay Powell has now it's scheduled, but a unscheduled press conference. Or I don't know if it's a press conference or a speech, but anyway, Jay Powell, as the chairman of the Fed, typically doesn't, appear outside of scheduled events. And if you recall, he met with Trump last week in private. It was a private meeting between Jay Powell and Trump, and unscheduled. He's talking tomorrow, 1 p.m. Eastern. So that's probably the biggest event, economic event of the week. So definitely be ready for that. Scanning out the calendar, just kind of looking for stuff. We don't have a data heavy week this week, and we got the ISM number tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. Just looking for stuff that is actionable to us. Thursday morning, okay, outside of the Jay Powell's tomorrow, Thursday, we got the weekless jobs claims, 8:30 Eastern, and continuing claims. So outside of, Tuesday, Wednesday, nothing real huge, but the jobs number on Thursday is a big one. You want to track that. And then we do have a lot of earnings today. I'll come back to those. And then Friday, we have more payroll numbers, but probably the biggest two events would be 1 p.m. tomorrow with Powell, and then 8:30 Eastern on Thursday for the jobless numbers. Let me scan the earnings calendar. Where are we at? Tuesday night, CrowdStrike. Definitely one to watch. Let me get into Wednesday. Nothing jumping. We're kind of coming to the tail end of earnings season, so nothing really that. CrowdStrike is one to watch for sure. Thursday night, AVGO, Docu, Lulu. As funny as it is to mention Lulu, that's all. Lululemon is always a stock that's volatile around earnings. And Woof is Thursday night. And that's about it for earnings. So, I mean, we're at the tail end. So I would say the tops to watch when it comes to volatility, AVGO, CrowdStrike, Lulu, and then a few kind of that have been occasionally volatile, DG, DLTR, HPE, and VSCO. But the three big names to watch next week for earning plays, AVGO, CrowdStrike, and Lulu. And then let me jump here. So that's kind of the review. So let's jump back to Thursday night. NIO was supposed to be the next Tesla. Listen, nobody laughed at that more than me. Like like anyone can even come close to competing with Tesla, man. It's such a joke. Like, here's the deal. You got ICE, okay, internal combustion engines. You got Toyota. That's it, okay? You got Toyota is so far ahead of anyone else in ICE. Everything else is a joke. It's junk. They fall apart. Like here in Michigan, if you buy a GM vehicle, it'll be rusted out in 18 months. So there's ICE and you got Toyota. And then on the EV side, you got Tesla. And then it's just a bunch of also-rans. They're all jokes. They're all trash. So yeah, anyone that said NIO was going to be the next Tesla, or anyone that says anyone is going to be the next Tesla, it's a joke. It's a joke. Anyway, BYD, junk. Okay. Don't fall for the China scam. So anyway, back to the end of last week. SBET. Okay. So I want to recap SBET, arguably the best stock of the week, or maybe the second best stock of the week. We will talk about BMGL, because BMGL, when it comes to the number one RCT tomorrow morning, it's BMGL. But I want to jump back to last Sunday night. And again, I know I always say this, but all these are recorded. You can go back and watch. And I know I'm repeating myself. Take a coffee shot. I'm the king of repeating myself. At the end of the Sunday night live stream, I gave you 2 stocks for Tuesday morning, and I said the best play Tuesday morning is going to be an RCT on one of these 2. Okay. You come in Tuesday morning, and again, remember, markets were closed for Monday, for Memorial Day. You get the gap up on SBET. Okay. SBET gapped up. Then it put in an RCT at 10:38 by 10:15. And it did that at exactly 7 a.m. So exactly 7 a.m., put in an RCT with an entry of 10:38 and a stop of 10:15. And remember, this, what I'm showing on screen, is an algo that maps out RCTs for you. Now, to be clear, you could do this all manually, guys. It's like the RCT in pre, okay? One of my favorite, I'm a poet and I don't know it. So you'll hear me say RCT in pre 1,000 times a day. So you can do it manually. Like it's one of the easiest patterns ever. Okay. Like to me, recognizing an RCT, like it's the easiest trade pattern to recognize. And what you're looking for is that a low float stock with news, which was SBET. You're looking for float rotation. Okay. You want to have float rotation, low float stock, less than 10 million float, and a catalyst. Okay. Then you wait for the initial parabolic move, an initial straight vertical move of 50% or plus, and then you simply wait for the first red 5-minute candle, and you use that 5-minute candle to guide you through the trade. It gives you your entry, it gives you your exit, it gives you your profit targets, it maps out the trade all for you. So if you go back to Tuesday morning on SBET, let me grab that intraday chart. Remember, the entry was 10:38 Tuesday morning, and let me zoom in here. It hit that right here, okay? And by the opening bell, SBET was at $30. And after the opening bell, it went to 50. And then on Friday, went to 124. Now, I want to be clear. I'm not saying anyone, you would have had to been a hell of a gunslinger to hold from 10:38 all the way to 120. The point is that these moves can be predicted in advance. And I'm going to segue over to BMGL. Well, actually, let me recap what we were looking for Sunday night on SBET because of Friday. Okay. So on Friday, the day before the Memorial weekend, SBET, Bitcoin stock, crypto stock, etc., it went from 3 to 7. 3 to 7 in one day. Massive upside move. Then we come into Sunday night, and I'm like, all the recipe that I just went over. Then we simply waited for that first red candle for an entry, and we already talked about SBET. So let's fast forward to BMGL. Now, BMGL, on a side note, Oracle had an entry at, where's my downloads? Where is it? $1.29 on Friday. Whoops, where is it? Is it that one? Yeah. So BMGL Very similar type move to SBET last Friday. Now, this is last Friday on BMGL. So I'm showing you the kind of how the recipe is very similar. So you go back to Friday on BMGL, Bitcoin stock. They had news, low float stock, crazy volume, come into the market open. Oracle delivers the signal of $1.29. Later that day, went to 7+. Now, I'm not here to talk about the past. Okay. Remember, a lot of times people will yell at me and they'll be like, oh, don't talk about the past. I will get to the future, my friends. I will get there. But the point is, very similar type move to SBET a week ago Friday on a very similar type recipe stock on BMGL. So now, what's the plan for tomorrow? Tim, we want to talk about tomorrow. I get it. You want to talk about tomorrow. Basically, you've got two ways to approach BMGL going into tomorrow. Now, I did a weekend workshop this weekend. Was anybody on the weekend workshop? All day Friday, all day Saturday. Had a lot of fun. I actually went like an hour over on my time on Saturday. Went way over on time. But we mapped out the technical levels for a support and resistance type play on BMGL. Now, let me get rid of my Oracle lines. Let me clean up my chart. So there's two different ways to approach BMGL. And we've got a pretty wide spread here on support and resistance. So we've got resistance. Now I'm focusing on the purple lines. Okay, these are the purple lines that we mapped out on the weekend workshop. And we're looking at 550 by 450. Now, I know that's a pretty wide band to trade. But remember, guys, all of you should have your number. Actually, let me ask, does everyone have your number? Does everyone have their number? What does that mean? What's the number? So at any point, if I ask you what your number is, what is that? I'll grab a drink of coffee and wait for somebody to answer. And I'll pop another's in. Oh man, I'm out. Good thing I got a backup. Always have a backup. Max loss. Caleb, yeah. So when I say your number, that is a dollar amount that you're willing to lose that is acceptable to you. Okay. So so for future webinars or future live streams, anytime I talk about your number, that is a dollar amount that you are okay with losing on a trade. Now, for you, I don't know. It could be $5. It could be $50. It could be $500. It could be $5,000. It could be $50,000. Okay. Whatever that number is. But it should be a dollar amount that when you lose, you're okay with that. Now, no one likes to lose. Everyone hates losing. But we understand that losing is part of trading. And if losing is part of trading, we have to understand that, we can't guarantee wins. And we always focus on high probability setups like RCTs and weak open red to greens and dip and rips and Oracle signals and afternoon VWAP holds and all these patterns, VWAP bounces, all these patterns that we trade. But you should always have a dollar amount that's okay with you, that doesn't make you want to quit, that doesn't make you want to cry, that doesn't make you hate trading. Now, that number is going to vary for everyone. Like I said, you might have a couple $100 in your account and you don't like losing $10. Fine. We all start somewhere. But what the reason I bring that up is with a stock like BMGL that you've got to give a lot of breathing room. 550 by 450. Okay. That's a lot of room. But the nice thing about having your number is you can properly position size. So if your number is $100 and you're trading the support and resistance on BMGL tomorrow, that means you buy 100 shares. Okay? Because if it breaks 550 and it fails support, you're out $100. But you should always be thinking about that before you enter a stock. Now, each chart is going to have different range, different technicals, different support and resistance levels, different entries, exits, stop losses, and goals. But by having that number, you can always ensure that you're properly position sized and not risking too much of your account. What burns up so many new traders is they risk way too much on any trade. And if things go against them, they panic, they don't stop out, and now a $100 loss becomes a $1,000 loss, and now half of their account is gone in 10 minutes, okay? So going back to BMGL, the two ways to trade this tomorrow are the technicals of 550 by 450. Now, it's probably, if it hits that, it's probably going to be pretty early. This thing breaks early, it's probably going to be like 4 or 5 a.m. But the backup plan, and this is the reason I went back over the RCT so many times on the RCT on SBET, is there is a very good chance that we could have a very explosive trade tomorrow if BMGL puts in an RCT in that 7 to 9 a.m. window. Now, listen, if BMGL gaps down and falls apart, we don't care about it. We went over the support and resistance levels. That's a strength-based trade plan. And we went over the RCT, which gives you an entry, exit, stop loss, and goal all mapped out for you. Those are the two trades, well, plus the Oracle signal. I think BMGL could be very valid at the Oracle signal again. Remember, the entry was at $1.29 yesterday, and it did a 3-wave pattern. So that's the two ways to approach BMGL. Well, 3 ways. Once you add in the Oracle signal as well, you've got 3 different ways to approach BMGL tomorrow. What charts do you look at? So I use and recommend 3 time frames, and the 3 time frames that I use and I recommend are the 2-day 5-minute. I want to see the previous day and the current day 5-minute charts, and then the 2-month 15-minute. So I want to see a 2-month snapshot of the past chart history, and I zoom out a little bit. As you zoom out on the chart, we zoom out on the time frames as well. So 2-month 15-minute. I like to use the 2-month chart because I'm looking for recent spikes, former runners, and then the way we determine unusual volume is by looking at the 60-day average volume. So since when we're coming in each morning looking at all of the day oneers, we always want to see what the volume has been for the past 2 months. So 2-month 15-minute. And then the last time frame we use is the 1 year, 1 day to give us the full snapshot. That's what I call the big chart. So 2-day 5-minute, 2-month 15-minute, and 1 year, 1 day. And then I link them all together. And you can do this on pretty much any charting platform, but every stock that I look to trade, we go over all 3 time frames. You should be looking at all 3 time frames, every single stock you look to trade. Don't skip that step. It's really important. It doesn't take that long. You can do it. So, and then other stocks on the watch list. Oh, remember, guys, the watch list is free and goes out every Sunday. I typically recap it on these live streams, but it is free. I would recommend signing up for it. I give a full video, full charts, full commentary, breaking it all down. Why not sign up? It's free. It's every Sunday. So the other stocks on there, we had GITS. GITS, very interesting technical play as well. BSLK, held up very nice all day. BNAI and RRGB is kind of the top earnings winner, low priced earnings winner, swing type play. Now, just to recap again, BMGL, GITS, BSLK, BNAI, and RRGB. But if you want the full breakdown, you can just hit that link. You can watch the video. I give it all on there. So I think that's about it that I have for today. Yeah, orb, using the orb pattern with Oracle, 2 thumbs up for me, man. Love it. I don't typically talk about the orb that much simply because, you know, one dilemma that I have, you know, working with new traders is I try and focus on, you know, about half a dozen different patterns. Now, the orb is a great pattern, and there's a bunch of patterns that I use and I trade and I teach, etc. But, you know, a lot of you guys are on the morning webinar, and when you have, you know, first of all, you know, Oracle signals, I think, are the best way for anybody to trade, but people still struggle with that. You know, it's like, sometimes I'm like, you can't just read the signal and use the lower support level for a stop loss and the upper resistance level for a profit target. Like, that's a little too advanced for people. Even though I'm always, every day I'm like, wow, you know, doesn't seem that advanced. But so I usually only kind of focus on less than 5 patterns, because a lot of people struggle with even 1 or 2 patterns. Like you look at the RCT. To me, the RCT is like the simplest pattern ever. And every, you know, like on these live streams, every week there'll be like 50. So I try and minimize the number of patterns outside of the more advanced webinars that I do. So I do a lot more advanced webinars. Some of you guys are on the beginning webinars. And then also what I actually trade is way more setups. But I find that when we kind of venture out, it just creates much more confusion. Now, Caleb, who's also a co-mentor in the Daily Income Trader System, all of you guys should join the Daily Income Trader System. If you don't, I think you're crazy. 5 live webinars a day. Nobody in this industry, 5 live trading webinars a day, 8:30 Eastern, 10:30 Eastern with Bryce Toohey, noon with me, 8:30 Eastern and noon with me, 2:30 Eastern with Caleb, and after the market close with Money Matt Monaco. Nobody does that. Nobody does that in this industry. Like, a lot of you have joined mentorship programs and you're like, where's the mentor? He shows up once a week, maybe. And then when he does show up, he talks about a bunch of random stuff that isn't even trading related. Okay. Like, those 5 webinars a day are all trading related. Now, occasionally, you know, listen, I'll tell some dumb dad joke or something, but they're all focused on trading. Same with Bryce, same with Caleb, same with Matt. Nobody does it. Anyway, back to the point of the orb. It's a pattern that Caleb covers every single day. All of you, once you learn the basics, you should add in the orb for sure. And love that you're combining it with the Oracle signals as well, Robert. So yeah. All right, guys, I am a little tight on time. Speaking of advanced webinars, I got one up at 8. I got something. I got a webinar I got to do at 8. I usually aim for about 30 minutes, 30 to 45 minutes. So I appreciate all of you being here. What's the number one setup for tomorrow morning? I'm going to end just like last week. RCTs from 7 to 9 a.m. Oracle signals at 9 at the market open. Flux signals in the afternoon. You're all set. Like, if you trade, and listen, again, orbs, okay? But I want to keep it simple. But if you want to know how to approach tomorrow, we approach it like every day, okay? Every day. RCTs from 7 to 9 a.m. Oracle signals into the market open, particularly in the 9:45. flux signals into the afternoon. And then, if you're in the daily income trader system, Matt Monaco will be live tomorrow night getting you ready for the next day. So, all right, guys, have a great day, and we will see you next time.